Okay, great. Well, I'm delighted to have the honor of welcoming you to the third in our lecture series this year entitled Shariah Watch that Professor Abou El Fadl has graciously agreed to offer for the benefit of the UCLA community and the broader Los Angeles community at a time of intense misinformation about the meaning and significance of Sharia in the United States. Dr. Khaled Abou El Fadl, who needs no introduction, incidentally, I can never do justice to him in any of these introductions, so please know that anything I say would take me the full 90 minutes to complete if I was trying to give you all of his credentials, so I'm going to, by necessity, give you a truncated version, but please do also consult our website. He is an absolutely distinguished and acclaimed scholar, and again, I can't list either all of his publications or all of the bases of those credentials and that acclaim in the short introduction time I have now. But Dr. Khaled Abou El Fadl is one of the world's leading authorities on Islamic law and Islam, and a prominent scholar in the field of human rights. He is the Omar and Esmeralda Alfi Distinguished Professor in Islamic Law at the UCLA School of Law, where he teaches international human rights, Islamic jurisprudence, national security law, law and terrorism, human rights, political asylum, and political crimes and legal systems. He also holds the chair in Islam and citizenship at the University of Tilburg in the Netherlands. He is also the director of the Islamic Studies program here at UCLA, which many of you, I'm sure, join me in celebrating the fact that it is once again a full-fledged program at UCLA, thanks to Professor Abou El Fadl's remarkable leadership. I also want to add, and again, I could go on much further on his publications and distinctions, but I want to particularly note right now that he was just ranked number 51, which is actually deceptively low ranking, but I'll explain it in a moment, in the Arabian Business Power 500 list of the world's most influential Arabs, persons of Arab origin. And I just want to note that that's the highest rank for any academic. The list is princes, kings, very distinguished businessmen, wealthy individuals, and so forth. And then Professor Khaled Abou El Fadl, who is ranking in that list as one of the most influential Arabs on the estimation of the Arab world. Never mind, of course, that he is one of the absolutely most distinguished persons working in English on questions of Islamic law and Sharia here in the United States. He is really singularity, unique in his distinction across the country, and we're very privileged to have him here at UCLA. He was also awarded the University of Oslo's Human Rights Award in 2007 for his lifetime contribution to the field of human rights, and he was also named a Carnegie Scholar in Islamic Law in the same year. So, again, extremely distinguished, and we're very fortunate that he has been willing to give these lectures, and also for the support of the Van Groenewoud Center for Near Eastern Studies here at UCLA, the Journal of Islamic and Near Eastern Law, and the Critical Race Studies program here at the UCLA Law School for being together the three co-sponsors of this series, which is, at least for this academic year, concluding with this final lecture today. So please join me in welcoming Professor Abou El Fadl.
This is thank you very much. It's always very generous. All right, this is the third and final lecture in the Sharia series that I at least am giving at UCLA. The first lecture we focused on what is termed and I'm going to talk about that in a bit, the phenomena of Islamophobia, which is a historical process and a historical phenomena that ebbs and peaks and goes down and so on at various points in history in various contexts in response to various issues. But the first lecture I posed the question, does it really matter what the Islamophobic discourse on Sharia is? Well, I mean, ultimately, whatever intellectual discourse we construct, there is a very concrete way in which ideas matter, and that is when they motivate and help shape human behavior. And it is simply immoral to ignore the direct and sometimes overwhelming impact that public discourses on Sharia or Islam might have on certain victims of stereotyping, prejudice, bigotry, racism, and so on. And that is an ongoing thing. I mean, there is now something called a sort of an update on Islamophobia that comes in every week, and it's every single week there are new victims to this phenomena in the United States. At least that's that newsletter focuses on the United States. The second lecture we focused on the construction of conceptualizations of Sharia, and of course not tying it to the first, but focusing primarily on the Egyptian context and the way that Sharia is negotiated and handled in contemporary set of discourses taking place in a particular point in history, using the example of Egypt. I won't repeat what I said in these lectures, but this lecture I want to draw the various threads together in ultimately what I believe, or I would argue, are the main challenges that confront Sharia discourses in our contemporary age. Now, let me first return to the issue of Islamophobia, which has, there's a considerable body of literature on it. It has become a current term, a popular term, to connote an irrational and or non-rational response to and fear of Islam. Now, and all subdivisions of Islam, whether it's an irrational fear of Sharia or some other aspect of Islam. Now, of course, the term itself is in some ways inadequate. I mean, in some ways simply limited and constrained, because what discourses on Islam have, as I said, have a long historical rootedness. And indeed, discourses on Islam and from Islam have played a rather significant role in both shaping what we call the West and also shaping what the West calls the Islamic, whatever the Islamic is or whatever the West is. And that has constantly shifted and mutated at different times in history. Never really a constant, stable phenomenon. Whether the West at one time is associated with the idea of Christendom, or with the idea of the Holy Roman Empire, or with the idea of the papal authority, and so on and so forth. Especially when you throw in factors like Eastern Orthodox Christianity. And similarly, the whole label of Islam falls in its own problematic dynamics. Whether Sunni or Shi'i or Ismaili or Ibadi, at what time do we really have human beings working within a unit that we can call Islamic, and at what times do especially the microdynamics of socio-political historical process show that they don't simply respond to a single label like Islamic or regional or tribal, but to a variety of stimulants that goes on to shape the responses. So, I mean, there is history that you can study. You can read a book on the construction of Saracen women in medieval French epics, which is actually an actual book, and it's a very good book. And you see the process in which Muslim medieval women are constructed in French epic thought. On the other hand, you can read a book on the introduction of Arabic into British learning, which is again the title of a real book, and you see layers of sophisticated dynamics in the way that this concept of Islam, the West, is negotiated and renegotiated, constructed and reconstructed. And furthermore, we find that if you read a book that I definitely would, let me get the title right now, that I would suggest is a wonderful book that I think came out, I don't recall, but it was in the last 5 years or so. It's called Saracens, Demons, and Jews Making Monsters in Medieval Art. And the author is Deborah Higgs Strickland. And Deborah Higgs points out that both Muslims or Jews are repeatedly constructed in European art as what she calls the folkloric monster. And with numerous similarities between the construction of the Jew and the Muslim in popular folklore. Now, of course, Strickland's book focuses on the construction of both the Jew and Muslim as outsiders in contexts in which there are sufficient social and historical indices to say that indeed they are insiders to society rather than outsiders. It's covering a particular period of history. Anyway, and so now, but Islamophobia, or the term Islamophobia, while it could refer to this historical process, it misses a very important element, and an element that cannot be ignored in the contemporary context, although in the historical context it might be, it would require a different paradigm of analysis. And the contemporary context is the element that I find troubling in the coverage of that term is in many of what various books has identified as examples of phenomena of Islamophobia, there is a constant thread running through that transcends the issue of religious bigotry or religious hostility or the context of religious wars, which human beings have excelled in, unfortunately, throughout history, and religious conflicts, to the issue of race and ethnicity, and the construction of the racial and ethnic alien. Many of what are currently phrased as Islamophobic discourses, when I look at them and scrutinize their claims, their processes, their dynamics, I'm not convinced that they're responding to Islam as much as they are responding to a racial paradigm, an ethnocentric paradigm. Very much like the difference between, there's a very good book called Judeophobia, which explores the difference between Judeophobia and anti-Semitism. One is anti-religious or focused on the hate of religion and religious bigotry, the other on a